Welcome to the KK Penson TV.
Make sure you guys subscribe to our channel.
We do doll videos, Roblox, baking, and vlogs.
We also do short films such as The Story of Crazy Face, and we also do Talking Hot Show.
A special thank you to Blue Blood Sports TV. Thank you so much for your support. We will continue to work hard and bring you more content. Bye!
Show support. Subscribe to KK Penson TV. If you got children, if you got nieces, if you got nephews, if you got little cousins, if you have friends that have kids, make sure they subscribe to KK Penson TV. Please do that. Show love and show support.
Hey, this is Cassie, and you're watching Blue Blood Sports TV.
Shout out to Blue Blood Sports TV.
You're watching Blue Blood Sports TV.
Shout outs to Blue Blood Sports TV.
You're watching Blue Blood Sports TV. Hola, habla Cindy, está viendo Deportes TV.
What's good, YouTube? It's your boy, Blue Blood Sports TV, back at y'all with another one. So, former 2-division world champion, former junior welterweight unified world champion, former WBC welterweight world champion, Danny Swift Garcia, did an interview today to discuss the announcement of his highly anticipated title showdown with undefeated unified WBC IBF welterweight world champion superstar boxer Errol Spence Jr. With that said, Danny Garcia was on the Ak and BARAK show. Shout out to the Ak and BARAK show on SiriusXM radio, in which he was asked about, obviously, his upcoming showdown with Errol Spence, November 21st, in which Danny Garcia had something really, really interesting to say that jumped out at me when asked about, does he see any flaws in Errol Spence Jr. that he could expose, right, and he could exploit, you know, to get a victory over Errol Spence Jr. because he is indeed going to go into this fight as the underdog, in which Danny Garcia responded that he saw that Mikey Garcia that did some things. He exposed Errol Spence. He did some great things in the fight, but Mikey Garcia just wasn't big enough, you know, to carry out the mission and be successful and victorious in the fight against Errol Spence. He also pointed to the showdown Errol Spence had with two-time welterweight world champion Showtime Shawn Porter, who was the WBC world champion, who defeated Danny Garcia for the WBC title and then lost it to Errol Spence Jr. He says Errol Spence had a much, much tougher fight with Showtime Shawn Porter than I did. He said the fact that Shawn Porter just let his hands go more than I did is the reason he beat me. But it was a very, very tough and physical fight against Errol Spence that with Shawn Porter. And he says that he feels like, he could exploit. He's big enough that he could exploit and do things better than Shawn Porter, be more active in this fight, obviously, than he was against Shawn Porter. And he says he feels like he could duplicate what Mikey Garcia did in the fight with Errol Spence Jr. So he feels like in the fights with Shawn Porter and in the fight with Mikey Garcia, he saw a lot of things that exposed, well, I don't want to say exposed, but there's some weaknesses, that he could exploit. There's some holes in his game, and he feels like he could capitalize on them and be victorious. He's not worrying about being an underdog. He said that the only time he gets any cheers is when he walks into the Barclays Center. Other than that, he says you can hear a pin drop when he's fighting or when he's announced. So either, they booing him, so he feels like he's always the underdog. But let's just listen to what Danny Garcia had to say regarding this situation between himself and Errol Spence.
The underdog thing, I've been hearing that my whole career, so I'm used to being an underdog. I don't even feel right when they say Danny's supposed to win when the odds are on my side. Other than the Barclays Center, that's the only place the fans cheer for me at the Barclays Center. Other than that, you can hear a needle, pin drop in the arena when I'm beating him up. So, I've seen things in the Mikey Garcia fight, even though he won that fight, he won by a big score, but I saw things in that fight that, I'm bigger than Mikey, I'm stronger than Mikey. Mikey did some good things in that fight. He just beat by the bigger, better man. And then the Porter fight, I saw that he was getting hit a lot. When I saw Porter, it wasn't even a hard fight for me like that. You know what I mean? It was just, he just threw more, and that's why he won, basically. But I seen him get hit a lot in that fight, and I seen a lot of mistakes where I feel like I could take this guy.
So you heard it. Danny Garcia feels like, Mikey Garcia just was too small to carry out the mission and be successful and victorious against Errol Spence Jr. And he feels like, he got hit a lot and exposed, you know, against Showtime Shawn Porter. So he feels like he likes his chances to be victorious. You heard him. He said, I see that I'm big enough, I'm strong enough, and I'm skilled enough to be able to be victorious against Errol Spence Jr. First and foremost, this is the mindset and the outlook he's supposed to have going into this fight. He's a 2-division world champion. He's a former unified world champion in 2 different weight classes. So obviously he's going to have the confidence and the mindset that he could be victorious against Errol Spence Jr. That's just obvious. He's supposed to have that mindset. He's not supposed to go in this fight thinking anything less, or he's already lost half the battle. With that said, I think that Errol Spence did a great job against Mikey Garcia. Mikey Garcia had minor success coming forward, and I think that's due to the fact that Errol Spence allowed Mikey Garcia to have that success. And another thing, he said that he feels like Errol Spence won the fight over Mikey Garcia simply because of size. He was just too big and too strong. And I have to beg to differ on that point, because Errol Spence did not impose his size. He did not impose his will and his physical advantages over Mikey Garcia. He just simply outboxed Mikey Garcia. He used his boxing skills. He used range. He used distance to be successful against Mikey Garcia. So he never used his size in the fight with Mikey Garcia to be successful. That is a myth. Everybody has been going into that fight. Everybody was expecting the size advantage to be the X factor and the reason for why Errol Spence won the fight, and it simply was not the case. And just people just seem to not be able to let it go that wasn't the case. He never used his size as an advantage. Okay. And then when it gets to Shawn Porter imposes his will and his style on every guy he's ever fought. The reason that Danny Garcia had a different type of fight, and it seems it comes off as simpler, because Shawn Porter decided to change his style going into the Danny Garcia fight, because he knew he had his feet were too fast, his boxing ability, he was too quick, he was too athletic. So what was the reason for him to impose his will and fight on the inside when he could fight Danny Garcia from the outside? Because he had the edge in hand speed, he had the edge in foot speed, and he had a better educated jab. And Danny Garcia even admitted that Shawn Porter and his team caught him off guard. They did not expect that version of Shawn Porter. So that's why it looked like an easier fight, like Floyd Mayweather fights. Floyd Mayweather fights look easy outside of the Cotto fight, the Maidana fight, and the Jose Luis Castillo fight, because he's a boxer. He boxes from range. He uses the sweet science. He uses his skill set. So the fight doesn't look as tough. It's not rough and rugged. And that's the style. That's the style that Shawn Porter decided to use against Danny Garcia and have him be successful. So it wasn't the fact that what Danny Garcia did, it was more so what Shawn Porter did and his approach to the fight that made the fight look easy. Okay, so it had nothing to do with Danny Garcia not being able to, being able to offset Shawn Porter's natural style. You see, just like Shawn Porter fought Yordenis Ugas in the same manner he fought Danny Garcia. It wasn't a rough, rugged, tough fight. He just didn't decide. See, Shawn Porter has, he's probably the most athletic out of all the boxers. He's probably the most, gifted in footwork and foot speed. So Shawn Porter can choose what style and what speed and what distance the fights are going to be at. And he doesn't get enough credit for so, because he just didn't he didn't get the victories over Kell Brook and Keith Thurman. So, and Errol Spence. But he chooses what type of fight it's going to be, right? Kell Brook did a lot of excessive holding in the fight. He was victorious, but he did a lot of excessive holding in that fight. Keith Thurman was not able to get away from Shawn Porter, so he had to fight Shawn Porter off the ropes with his back to the ropes. That was Shawn Porter choosing to make the fight in that manner, right? Errol Spence had to fight Shawn Porter in close proximities because Shawn Porter chose to make the fight that way. Shawn Porter chose not to fight Danny Garcia on the inside. So it wasn't what Danny Garcia did. It was more so what Shawn Porter did not want to do. And he was victorious in that manner. So I think that Danny Garcia should not look at the Mikey Garcia fight and not look at the Shawn Porter fight as a barometer and as a lesson to his approach to Errol Spence, because that is not going to work for him because he's flat-footed. He's slower than Shawn Porter, hand speed and foot speed. You know, he just doesn't have the fluidity of Shawn Porter, who could dip in and out. He could, you know, he could bounce in and he could bounce out. He doesn't have that. So to look at Shawn Porter's approach and Shawn Porter's success against Errol Spence is fool's gold for Danny Garcia, because styles make fights and he doesn't have the ability of Shawn Porter. Now, if you want to look at the Mikey Garcia fight, Mikey Garcia is a counter puncher. Mikey Garcia is more flat-footed. You know, his punches are more calculated. He has a great jab. Yes, that's a better comparison. But if you look at the fight, Errol Spence completely outboxed Mikey Garcia. Had nothing to do with his physical advantages. Had nothing to do with his size advantage. It had to do with everything with his skill set and his boxing ability. And if he looks at that fight as a lesson and a way for him to have success, he will come up short in the same manner that Mikey Garcia did. Is if Errol Spence has the same approach to Danny Garcia as he did Mikey Garcia, because they are very similar. Yes, he's bigger, he's stronger, he has more power than Mikey Garcia, but at the end of the day, again, it had nothing to do with Mikey Garcia and everything to do with Errol Spence's boxing ability, his ring IQ, and his ability to continue to create distance with Mikey Garcia and fight from outside. He still will have those advantages over Danny Garcia. Now, Danny Garcia, obviously, like I stated, is going to have more power than Errol Spence. He has more power than Mikey Garcia, and he has more power than Shawn Porter. But that's due to the fact that he sits down on all of his punches, which makes him fight in quicksand. He's slow. His feet are slow, right? He puts a lot of pressure on you, but his feet are slow. And that is not going to work against a version of Errol Spence that fought against Mikey Garcia. So I think that Danny Garcia needs to have a different approach. He needs to try to walk Errol Spence down and close the distance, a la Lamont Peterson, Kell Brook, and then try to have success in that manner. Because if he tries to fight in a counter-punching style, a boxing style like Mikey Garcia, he's going to lose just like Mikey Garcia. But November 21st, I can't wait to see how this plays out. I'm expecting Errol Spence to be victorious, 8 rounds to 4. But let's see how this all plays out. But that's all I got for y'all. Y'all already know what it is. It's your boy Blue, Blue Blood Sports TV. Hit, like, comment, and subscribe. You haven't subscribed? Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the bell icon to get all the new notifications. Follow me on Instagram at Blue Blood Sports TV, all one word. Y'all already know what it is. Shout out to the entire LDBC. Shout out to New Media. Shout out to Black Media Raw. Make sure you like and share these videos. That's all I got for y'all. Peace. More Modern Day Slave out now. Go get your copy. Pariah Administrations presents More Modern Day Slave. You can hear a sneak peek coming up right now. Listen to the sneak peek. Then go to SoundCloud and support the grind. Support the business. Let's go. Let's get it. Support More Modern Day Slave right now. Let's listen to the sneak peek.
Interactions with a bass head. Seen his eyes for the bass hit him. He was soul searching for his place. Too late to judge him. I'm addicted to his payment. Stay a boy, stay paid vacation. Trying to take my babies to the caves. Enjoying the fruits of all their hard labor. But for right now, stay down and stay patient. I don't converse with niggas stuck off in the matrix. Trunking peace sounds get made with killer faces. Every soul around us won't be syndicated. Not off in the process of being renovated.
Hey, this is Jasmine. Thank you for watching Blue Blood Sports TV. Hola, soy Jasmine. Gracias por ver Sangre Azul Deportes TV. Gracias.